Podcasting from the beautiful state of Maine, welcome to another episode of the Learning from Leaders podcast, the show that focuses on identifying and developing the skills and behaviors that will inspire, empower, and compel others to follow your lead. Listen as Patrick's guests talk about the powerful leadership approaches they have identified and developed, which are vital for leading in today's challenging times. These are the same approaches that will positively impact you as a leader too. Learning from Leaders provides the right balance of leadership research with real-world scenarios, making it easy for you to rise above your best. All right, let's start the show.
Hey everybody, I'm Patrick Veroneau, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Learning from Leaders. And on this episode, I'm talking with author Bill Murphy about his recent book, Thriving in the Storm, 9 Principles to Help You Overcome Any Adversity. This was an awesome conversation. Bill has such a great story. He's a very successful mortgage originator. He's an ultra marathoner, Ironman finisher. He's a second-degree black belt in Krav Maga, but he also talks about his struggles growing up and the challenges that he faced growing up and how those things have shaped how he has taken on challenges all the way into his adult life. And I think it's a great inspiration for all of us, lessons to be learned, and a great inspiration. So let's get into it. Bill, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today. I will tell you, I really enjoyed your book. I think has so much, especially coming into the beginning of the year for people, the idea of how do you navigate change that we might all be having. And your book is Thriving in the Storm, right? 9 Principles to Help Us Overcome Adversity. You certainly had more than your share of adversity that you talk about in the beginning of the book. Based on your whole story that you tell there, what was the deciding factor to put the book together?
It was actually 2 parts. Thanks for asking, and thanks for having me on. It was, number one is we're all way more capable than we think we are. We're selling ourselves short all the time. So that was the first premise, because I was like, I'm nothing special. I set my mind on something and there's failing, but there's no quit, right? So just keep failing and getting up. Get up fast as you can. That's the thriving part. There's no quit. The other part of it is when adversity does strike, many of us just come up. That victim mindset is really easy to make an excuse not to do anything about it. So, hey, adversity struck. I'm pulling the covers over my head. I'm hitting that snooze button. I'm not moving because I just had a real rough day. I had some real bad news. I'm settled. Or you can survive and walk around like a zombie and be like, hey, I'm surviving. Or you can say, you know what? Yes, I had some really tough stuff happen. I need to take this on. While I'm working or while I'm going about my day, I'm going to put my intention and effort into this, into my being to at least get through. When everything's going swimmingly, we're on top of the world. We're flying through our tasks. When it's hard, that's where the magic happens. And that's where you can start to thrive. So basically, we're all way more capable than we think we are. And then when stuff happens, I find that the super successful, they march through it and they persevere, and mediocrity cowers.
It's so true. And when I was reading this, I was thinking of my own upbringing and some of the challenges that I went through. It resonated with me, a lot of things you were talking about. And you're from the outside, right? You're number 1 mortgage in terms of where you are within your company. You're an Ironman participant. You're multiple Boston Marathon participant. You're a black belt in Krav Maga. All of these things, right? But it's not all easy for you, right? There was a lot of struggle growing up for you. And I think it'd be great for you to tell some of that, right? Because the first chapter of your book is making peace with your past.
Yeah. So the peace with your past is not for what you've done wrong, but what has been done wrong to you. And so forgiving those that have wronged you is very hard to do. If we hold grudges and have ill will and we root for bad stuff, we root for karma, then karma is going to strike you. Making peace with your past is no ill will against others, no grudges. And then if you can take that a step further, when you make peace, can you send blessings? Can you be okay and say, you know what? I was wronged and I'm going to wish the best for that person. Hopefully they get it right or whatever, but I'm not going to bring that energy negatively and hold that against that person. So that was one thing. And then, so the other part of making peace with your past is, what were your regrets? Like, what didn't you do because You didn't think you were worthy. You had self-doubt, limiting beliefs. Like, what was something that, or maybe you were bullied. What held you back from doing something that you wish you could do? Why can't you, not necessarily if it's like me, college football, I wish I played. I can't play college football today. But what I did was I played Parks League football until I was 40, like just to make amends with my past. Like just as goofy as you can gamify it. Like there's things that you physically can't do in time to go back, but you can change the trajectory of what you didn't. Maybe it was, maybe you wish you were in the military. Go do a crazy camp for 72 hours where you don't sleep and you're running in mud the whole time. I mean, anything.
So this morning, there's a book that I read from every morning as part of a sort of a ritual of me starting out my day. And it made me think when you talk about making peace. So this is what it said. Resentment, condemnation, anger, desire to see someone else punished are things that rot your soul. Such things fasten your troubles to you with rivets. And the guy's name is Emmett Fox. So when you said that, I mean, that is it. It's like we're the ones that are hurt by it. And I always think of that term now when they say, oh, karma's going to reach them when it's something that bad happened to me. Well, maybe this is my karma, that I did this to somebody else at some point. Maybe I'm the one that's getting the karma for doing this to somebody else earlier on.
You're so right. And thanks for sharing that. That was pretty amazing. I wish I said it that way because that was awesome. You start rooting for karma, you're going to get struck by lightning. And I mean that in the lightest sense, but you can't wish bad on people because you're creating bad for yourself. It just happens. Think about everybody that does that. They're not the ones that get lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. That just never happens for them because of where their makeup is going, where their energy is going or looking towards.
I once heard this said, and it has stuck with me again. And along those lines, I really try and remind myself of this. It said, chasing the snake that bit you only moves the venom through your body faster. I mean, you think about that, right? And that's helps me to sort of slow things down, like let this thing go because they've probably already forgot about it. And I'm the one that keeps carrying this resentment toward them. I'm the one that's getting poisoned by this thing, not them.
You had two great, incredible quotes, man.
No, they're not mine. I just remember them.
Swipe and adapt somehow because that's really powerful stuff right there.
You talk in the second chapter of this, what's your purpose? And you actually listed some things here, and I loved the outline of it, and I wrote it down. You talk about an implementation plan, about declare, record, focus, visualize, and do. And to me, that really resonated. It was just so powerful the way you outlined that. I thought, declare. What does that mean? I mean, help people understand.
So if we're fearful of announcing what we want to do because maybe we're embarrassed or maybe we don't think we'll fail, if you declare it, you just built in your accountability partners. Now, you want to declare it to the people that will lift you up. Now, you start declaring it to the toxic folks and they're going to bring you down. So be very careful. But if you declare it and you say, you know what? It's 2023. It's my year. I'm going to go do a half marathon. I'm going to do an Ironman. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you tell people and you ask them to help you with that and hold you accountable, then that is just going to lift you up because now you have to report to them when you don't do it. So then even take it a step further. If you're a social media person, say, hey, friends, I'm out there. I'm training. Anybody want to train with me? I'm looking to do my first half marathon. Any tips? All you runners out there, any tips? So now you just get people rallying you and they're picking you up with that when you declare it. Now, I've seen others say, you know what, just keep it to yourself because the naysayers may bring you down. Well, stay away from the naysayers. And we all have naysayers in our life. They could be our family. Oh, you don't want to do that. You're going to get hurt. You don't want to do that. That's fine. You know what? You can love on them from a distance, but not in that area where you want to go. They could be your mom. She always tells me I'm going to get hurt. And I love her and she means the best. And you're going to fall down off that bike. You're going to drown swimming. You're going to break a leg doing your runs. And it's just like, Ma, I love you. How are you? So you just be very careful, but get the people that are going to lift you. You know what? If you're scared of that, I find really genuinely people really are rooting for you. If you're a good person, have a good heart, and your intentions are great, people will just root for you.
Totally agree with that. And it's funny, I did a workshop on goal setting. And there's a science to telling somebody else what your goal is. As long as you tell somebody that you respect and that you feel as high status, when you tell them, it increases the likelihood, and it's been proven in research that people are more likely to follow through on it. And the other component to that is when you have an accountability partner, somebody that supports you on that, then it's exponential in terms of your ability to achieve whatever you set out to do. I mean, there's science behind that too.
There is. And I know you've done a TED Talk, and I can't wait to hear it. And I used to be pretty nervous all the time when I would speak to folks. And when we talk about rooting for somebody, and picture this, Patrick, have you ever been sitting in the audience for a speaker or somebody presenting and they mess up? And they know they messed up, and then it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable. But are you really rooting for that person to get it back on?
Totally.
Like you're rooting, like, come on.
You got
Come
this.
on, buddy. Come on, get this. You got this. Take a sip of water. Get your notes, whatever. Like, people are rooting for you. They don't want to see you fail. They're not looking for the car crash in the NASCAR. They actually want to see you succeed. If you have good intentions and your heart's in the right place, you're going to root for every speaker you ever see.
I would agree with that. You talk as well about focus. How important is that?
You got to focus on what you want. I mean, your energy will flow there. If you lose focus, you get it back on track. So with focus, think if we're lacking focus, we're coasting in business, in life. And so make sure we're intentional. I talk about this. I had my swim coach talk about junk miles, right? In the swim prep for Ironman. So when I would swim, I would just I'm not doing these drills. I'm just going to swim for the amount of time they told me to swim for. So I'm focused on the time, but I'm not focused on technique. I'm not focused on getting better, stronger, faster, and improving. But then he says, you need to do these drills. And they would tie bungees to my feet and have to swim out and feel like I was going to drown and have claustrophobia and anxiety and fear and want to get out of the water and never swim again. And that is actually strengthening that stress muscle. You're not coasting anymore. You're incredibly focused on what you need to do. So I think we're on autopilot when we lose our real intentional focus. So it's important to stay honed in on what you're focusing on, or you're going to coast and just put in junk miles.
As you say that too, and you mentioned, and I know that comes up somewhere else in the book around building the stress muscle. I think how important that is today, right? In this environment where people seem to be so stressed out, not having that ability to have that focus, I think creates an environment where it's easier for our stress muscle to get weakened if we're not focused on it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you have to build it up. A super successful guy in our business and has it all, right? He has everything. And we were at a seminar a few months back and we're in the hotel gym. And he's just going through the motions and he has his personal trainer on his phone, right? This guy has everything, but he's 5'7" and 330 pounds and he doesn't have his health. He has everything else, the money, the wealth, the kids, the family, just a beautiful life, right? Except he doesn't have his health, which is everything. He's on this treadmill and he has his trainer on with him. And if he was going any slower on the treadmill, I swear he was standing still. He starts videoing me and I see him in the mirror and he's like, look at Murph. Why is he doing that? That's crazy. Like those exercises, those squat pushes and all that stuff. I'm not doing that. And so I hear him talking to his trainer. Then we end up having dinner that night. He says, I can't do what you do, but I need my health. And I have everything except my health. I said, dude, fire your trainer. She's taking your money. There's no reason for you to be stagnant when you're going through those motions. Like you're going through the motions. You're showing up. Great. Attaboy. But you're not losing the weight. You're not getting healthier. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to quit. So now start pushing yourself. And that takes really deep focus, right?
Along those lines, though, I go to the next two things that you talked about here. You talked about visualize and then you talked about do. Somebody like that, I think, might be thinking they want to get better, but they don't believe that they can really get better. They just sort of go through the motions. And I think that's oftentimes what can happen to us, right? With self-talk or what seems that people think like, well, you just think good thoughts and eventually it happens, but it doesn't, right? You've got to put in the work like you did.
You have to put in the work and you have to eliminate the bad things that get in your way. I mean, to take this a step further, everybody thinks I'm doing the right stuff. And I said, I can see right now you're not doing the right stuff because you're standing still, but you're there. So showing up, the first part, that's getting out of bed and moving towards that goal. But now you do, like you said, you have to put in the work and don't cheat along the way. Like you can't sneak in that junk food. You have to be deliberate on where you're going with, you're only fooling yourself, not fooling anybody else. You're going to try to fool yourself because everybody's going to pick it up and say, well, you've been going to the gym every single day, 5 days a week for the last 2 months, and you haven't lost a pound. I've been working with him now. And I said, I told him, I said, stop it at the store with the dog. I know you leave your wallet at home, but don't bring Apple Pay anymore. And don't buy the junk food. And I said, walk those hills. And so for 2 weeks, we've been working together and he's dropped 7 pounds. And he's like, I still want the junk food. I still want the junk food. And then I said, dude, you talk about your kids in college. This is the why, right? You have your beautiful kids. You want to see them grow up. And he's like, yeah, man, when you're walking those hills and it stinks with the dog, just remember your kids.
I think you just nailed it too, because I believe that. I worked in organizations for many years and we used SMART goals. And I think there's value to some parts of SMART goals, but I think the part that's missing from a SMART goal is the emotional component to it. And to me, that's the mortar between the bricks that holds it together. If you don't have a strong enough why, then you can plan it and set a timestamp on it and do all the other pieces. But the why is what drives. That's it. And you hit on it with him of, I will often challenge people to ask themselves 5 times. So why do you want to get in shape? And whatever that answer is, well, why do you want that? For this guy, if you can get it down to it's about being alive for his kids, then hopefully you finally hit on that thing, or he has, that when he walks into the kitchen and there's Oreos and oranges on the table, he'll grab an orange instead of the Oreo because there's a why to it, right? It's an emotion behind the goal now, just as yours have been, or mine.
It's all emotions.
It really is. That's the driver on this.
It's great that you just point that out because not many people talk the emotions behind the why. The why can be compelling in a burning desire, but how emotional do you get? That's great. I love it.
Right. I mean, you think about it. You don't achieve things because it's not easy, but there are plenty of things probably that we've all had or wanted in our lives that obstacles get in your way. And you've proven it in your book here is you're like, F that. I am going to get there. I'm not letting this stop me because this is something I really want. It's the emotion that kicks you forward.
Yeah, you will fall down a lot on the way. You just can't give in. There may be some embarrassment too. You just got to keep with it.
You talk about a morning routine and how important that is in regards to adversity. How do you implement that in your life?
I wish I wrote the miracle morning because I feel like I do it. And I was like, oh, this guy, he did a great job with it. But it kind of epitomizes a routine. It's all about getting your mind right for the day and simply the journaling, the gratitude, the blessings, the workout, a little bit of prep for work, the scripture reading. Like that is all in the morning routine. And honestly, I started the gratitude a little differently because if you catch your thoughts sometimes in the morning, this is for me, and I feel like it's kind of the majority. What we think a lot of times is about our worries and stresses that we have coming up in the day. That's negative. Oh no, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. And so you start worrying and then you start spiraling and then you pick up your phone. And so now you're already way ahead of yourself with the worst that's going to happen. So I practice this. I catch those worry thoughts and I immediately start just giving thanks. And it's like a 30-second exercise. I'll give thanks for my health of my kid, my family, my career, the air I breathe, everything wonderful. I just give those quick gratitude acknowledgements, and then I move on. Sometimes we'll get into the breathing either then or a little bit later, but then do a little bit of meditation. But that really does set the stage for the day. But like, I don't want to lose sight. I have the bookend going too with finish your day just the same way. I write down my wins for the day or my lessons that I learned and what I was thankful for. And it takes less than 5 minutes. Man, could that replace some bad news about who got killed and shot and who's on drugs and else stuff we can put in our brains before we go to bed? You don't need that. Just fill it with some good stuff and then you wake up in a much better place. Yeah.
You're the first person I've heard of that talks about it in terms of bookends. And I do think that's what it is. There was some research that was done by a gentleman named Sean Aker. He wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage, but he did what was called the 21-Day Happiness Challenge with a group in New York City back in 2009. They had to do 5 activities. They had to write down 3 things every day that they were grateful for, and they had to make them different every day, right? So if you think about it, right, the first 3 days, all right, I can think of 9 things that I'm grateful for that are different. But when you get to day 15, now you're at 45 different things that you've had to say that you're grateful for. And I think that's where the real power of this thing kicks in because, like you said, what do we do when we wake up in the morning? Potentially we're like, this has gone wrong and this sucks and I got to deal with this. But if you think about what you're grateful for, it's like an immunization to that negativity. It pushes that stuff away. And what he talked about also that they had to do was they had to write 2 to 3 sentences of what they were grateful for during the day. What happened in the last 24 hours that you're grateful for? And to me, that's what you're talking about, is when you bookend that, if you start your day out with gratitude and you end your day, 2 to 3 sentences about what went well for the day, you go to bed in a place that's about restorative sleep, in the best place that you can do it, right? You're not going to bed about, oh God, I didn't get this done today. I got in an argument with this person and I've got this that I have to deal with tomorrow. You just go to bed being grateful again. So I love that when you talk about bookends. 90%
of our thoughts can be worry thoughts. And then we think 85% of those same thoughts the next day. So catch yourself. And there was the happiness advantage. I think I listened to that years and years ago. I have to revisit that, but I just saw a study where they had 30 days of folks that wrote gratitude, what they were thankful for every day. And then they had the folks that said they were anxious, write about what they were anxious every day. You know where this is going, right?
Yeah, that can't be a good ending.
No. So let's leave the best for last, right? All the anxious people created more strife, anxiety, depression, season foreclosures probably in their life, right? With documenting how they felt anxious. And all the grateful people had more clarity, more focus, more prosperity, more abundance, more love, more enthusiasm, more joy, more happiness. And it's so true. It's a free biohack.
And along those lines, you talk about it, and I would say this probably comes in there. You talk about building a fortress. As I read that, I interpreted it is you're really finding people around you to support where you want to go. At least that's how I saw that when I read that.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Who are you surrounding yourself with? You got to really get your top 5 key people to lift you up and keep you going. And that's when you declare it, you're going to have your fortress with you. And also, you're building your fortress with those routines. Now, the reason why we put the health piece in there, the meditations, the scripture, the journaling, the breath work, the workouts in the morning, because when stuff and stress happens during the day, you're going to be in a much better place, because when you're physically able to deal with stressors in life, now you breathe. All right, we got this. We're going to get this. But if you're in rough shape, the night before you had 3 glasses of wine and a 6-pack, you stayed up till 2 a.m, you surfed the internet and watched bad stuff. And then you get up early and just, you feel terrible and you're hitting the snooze button and you're late for work and all this other stuff. And now this same stressor happens to the one that had the routine. Who's going to handle it better? That's where the success and the mediocrity meet and go separate, because mediocrity is going to hide under their desk, or they're going to leave or quit the day. And success is going to say, who is with me? Because we have to tackle this together.
Yeah. And I think along those lines, I think of resources and resourcefulness, that we're always lacking resources, right? I'm always going to lack something that I need. Money, the education level, the experience in it, whatever it is, the height, I don't care. But what we all have equal access to is resourcefulness. Nobody gets any more or any less. That if you tap into, that's how you get around the lack of resources, is I'm going to figure this thing out, which I think goes back to probably the why, and it goes back to the routines, right? It builds this muscle overall that you're just like, I'm getting through this.
Resourcefulness, man, you're giving me some nuggets. I love it. This is great. It's true. Be resourceful.
Right. We all have that ability to. Nobody gets any more or any less. We only limit ourselves on that. You've pointed out a number of times in the book as you talk about it. And as you talked about your list, when I read that around journaling and meditation and scripture, I was laughing as I was reading the page, because I do that in the morning. I grew up Catholic and I do a rosary every morning. That's part of my meditation. It's just calming. It's like just part of what I do. And that quote that I read was part of one of the readings that I had this morning. But it's like it sets my day. And I think it's so easy when you're doing it, right? That's how you get to the level I think you're at, is you're like, the stuff becomes easier.
It does. And my grandmother would love you for giving a shout out to the rosary. She's deceased now, but she used to do the rosary every morning and night. And I'll read the Bible, but that's awesome, man. I had one of my sales folks yesterday, didn't have really his fortress or resourcefulness built up. It had a difficult call. I was on a Zoom call and I got a bad phone call that it was a deal going south. And I always tell everybody, listen, you only get the people on the inside with you to help you. You do not get the client involved yet, because you freak people out when that's bad news. So basically it was hey, we're short about 20 grand for you to buy your house. And do you have any more money? And so I get on my phone, I'm on the board of directors for Make-A-Wish. I'm on the Zoom call and my phone is blowing up. I'm blowing up. And I'm like, I'm embarrassed, but I had to, like, did someone die? You would have thought that. So I actually excused myself from the meeting. I get on, I was like, dude, what is going on? He's like, I screwed up. I called him and I said, well, okay, this number wasn't calculated correctly. But if I look at her profile, if she just, instead of 21,000, if you paid off a credit card with $200, then everything's all set. And he's like, oh, I just scared everybody. They're all mad at me and hate me. And I said, fix it. And then so I get off that call and it was an easy fix, but he freaked out. He wasn't resourceful and he hit the panic button because he was stressed. I say, never ever scare a customer until we know it's a last resort, right? Because then we'll get them involved to figure it out. And he's like, so his fortress wasn't built. He's like, I had a bad day. I was stressed out. I wasn't ready for that phone call. No one was around. I couldn't reach you. And granted, he's a couple years out of college. He's an understudy, but still, he wasn't prepared with his fortress and he hit the panic button and he wasn't very resourceful. And I said, you have the resources at your fingertips. Don't ever do that again. And so we had a nice talk and he's like, man, that was a great lesson to learn. And so you're right. The resourcefulness is so important there.
You talked in the beginning of the book that you're sort of a self-professed self-help junkie, which I fall into that too at a very early age. I had to chuckle when I read that you listen to audiobooks when you work out, because I do the same thing. I don't listen to music. I run to them, or I'll listen to YouTube compilations of motivational talks. Again, as I was listening to that, I said, this is like my distant brother somehow in terms of some of the stuff that you've been doing.
It's kind of nerdy, right?
Right. Yeah. Do you think that was a natural way for you to sort of build strength when you didn't feel like you had it?
No, because I was always doing things in spite and to show him that I could do it. It was more negative. I'm running away to show you that I can compete. I can do this. I can handle this. But I always wanted to be better. So the self-help stuff started when I got in the mortgage business in my late 20s. Yeah, I was like 27. And I got in the mortgage business and I had 2 cassette tapes that were handed to me. Think and Grow Rich.
Love it. One of my favorites.
The Magic of Thinking Big. I listened to so I was in Laguna Beach, California when I got in the mortgage business because I was burnt out. I was 5 years in corrections and juvenile lockups and counseling and all that sort of stuff. So I was burnt out. I went out there. And so I got into my dream job, what every kid dreams of being as a mortgage loan officer, right? And I'm kidding. But so I fell into this and I started to love the sales and loved using my counseling skills. And I listened to these tapes and I would listen to them on my drive to work and my drive home every day. And it got to the point where, you remember the cassette tapes? They'd break. I
remember the company I used to work for. We used to have what was called tape rental library that you could order them and they'd mail them to you.
You would do the pencil and try to wind it back. Oh my God, man.
Like, you do nail polish. You do nail polish.
We have anybody under the age of 40 listening to this right now. They're going to be like, what are these old people talking about? So yeah, and I've been hooked ever since. But here's the thing. What I've found now, and again, you can listen and follow and recite. I know several life business coaches that could go give you this plan, the most amazing plan, and help you get to your next level, but they don't do it for themselves. So that piece, I just have a hard time with. So they are the real self-help junkies without the implementation, without the action. Everything you do, listen to, and believe in, you have to take action. The second you stop taking action, you're just stagnant and nothing's going to happen.
It's the same thing with goal setting. We're great at setting goals. That's the easy part, right? I can set a goal. It's the follow through to achieving the goal is the part that we struggle on. And I think even this stuff, right? The self-help stuff, I don't think most people would deny what is talked about in self-help. It's the application of it people struggle with. It's like all diets work generally, but you got to do it.
Yeah,
you follow the diet.
You can't read about it, dream about it.
Yeah, right? It'd be like you being told how you're supposed to train for your next Ironman, and you read every day what you're supposed to do on the bike and in the pool and on the road running, and you keep it in your pocket. Well, there'd be no surprise that 6 months from now, if you go to get on any one of those 3 areas, you're not going to be any better off. But people somehow think that this is different. Go to a workshop and you'll be all set. And it's not that case.
It's all action.
As we sort of wrap things up here, what do you want people to walk away with as they read this book?
I just think in where we're at in society coming off the pandemic, possibly it's pretty inevitable we're going into a recession. Just look at what areas that you may be stuck in and try to unpack that a little bit and do some self-discovery. Bring your awareness to the forefront, and that will free you up to be able to go goal set or to be able to move at a better pace through your next endeavor. I think you just want to just do a self-check. Find out where you're at. Maybe, is it your health? Is it your mental health? Is it your routine? Is it, do you need to get up a little earlier? Do you need to eliminate? So this workshop that I just did, one of the things we had them do is a 30-day challenge of what am I going to eliminate that's either bad or a vice in my life? And what am I going to replace it with that's good and it's going to help me? It was very incredible. Like I'm 80-20, all 80 good in, and then 20% screw around and have my cocktails on the weekends and everything. But like, you know what? I said, I need to just do a dry January just for myself. So like, I'm not drinking. And so I didn't drink for January. I didn't have any cocktails. I didn't want to do anything. Just like, I'm just dry. And I replaced that with some of my projects that I've been working on. And it just feels really good to say that you can do it. Napoleon Hill used to say, I could have one drink. I could have two drinks. I could have three, but I'm not going to let that drink take me over. And he talked about it in Think and Grow Rich. And it's so true. Just don't let anything prove that you can beat anything outside of you and not let that take you over. And so when you practice these things every once in a while, give some sweets up, give something up, but replace it with something good. Swap it out, whatever it is.
I want to thank you so much, Bill, for your time. Thriving in the Storm, book that I've thoroughly enjoyed reading, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Patrick. I got some great takeaways today, too.
Both of us. Enjoy.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Learning from Leaders podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time, keep rising above your best as a leader.